Good morning, everyone. Today, our next topic in human reproduction is the oestrus cycle, and we will discuss about fertilization. First part of fertilization. Okay. So, in previous lecture, we have discussed about menstrual cycle and different phases and the hormonal action during menstrual cycle. So, in case of oestrus cycle, actually this cycle occurs in seasonal breeders. Seasonal breeders means there is a certain time or specific time in a year where uh, male and female organisms they are ready or they become receptive for reproduction as well as for fertilization. So that's why they are known as seasonal breeders. Okay. So in case of oestrus cycle, which in case of seasonal breeders, during this oestrus cycle or when this oestrus phase becomes active in female uh, reproductive system and as well as in male reproductive system, this is known as this phase. That's why this phase is known as heat period, or heat period is the phase when oestrus cycle or oestrus phase becomes active in male and in female in some animals. Okay, rather than primates, so rather than apes and human beings. So other than apes and human beings, all the animals do possess oestrus cycle, and apes and human beings possess menstrual cycle. So all the animals other than human being and apes, they are seasonal breeders, and when this cycle does take place, what that phase is known as heat period, and at that and during that particular time they become receptive. That means female becomes receptive, or in other sense, during heat period, these animals, I'm talking about the female animals, they become receptive. That means they are now, their reproductive structure is ready to receive male sperm for fertilization. Okay, like in case of cow does have the heat period only for 18 hours. That means this cow is receptive only for 18 hours. That means within this 18 hours, if this cow does not receive male sperm, egg will be damaged or destroyed. Okay. So this oestrus cycle or these seasonal breeders have there are some different you can say the pattern of oestrus cycle, like in case of monostress cycle, this cycle takes place only once in a year. Okay, so these seasonal breeders reproduces, these seasonal breeders in case of monostress uh, reproduce only once in a year, like in case of cattle. Biostress means bi means two. There are two cycles in a year, like in case of cats and dogs. Polystress means poly means many, more than two, or could be many. So many cycles in a year, like in case of rats. So oyster cycle in case of those animals other than apes and human beings. So there is a certain time period uh, depends on the changing environmental conditions or climatic conditions at that time. So during that special climatic or temperature conditions, heat period or oestrus phase occurs, and during that phase females become receptive. That means they are ready to receive male gametes for fertilization. Oh, these are the different phases. You can say animals on the basis of oocyte cycles, 1, 2 or more than 2. Okay, so let's come to the fertilization. Fertilization means, as you have studied many times before, fusion of male and female gametes. This fertilization may be external or internal. That means the fusion of male and female gamete would take place either inside the female reproductive body, that is internal fertilization, or outside the reproductive body, that is external fertilization, like in case of frogs, fishes, etc. So this is fertilization, fusion of male gamete and female gamete to form a zygote. So how does this process takes place? Especially in case of humans, because we are talking about human reproduction. So this begins with approach of male gamete or sperm. As you know, as we are talking about fertilization, how does it begin? It only could begin after the entry of male gamete or sperm inside the female reproductive tract or vaginal tract. So first this begins with approach of male gamete or sperm. So during the one ejaculation, which is ejaculated by male organ through penis, 3 to 4 ml of semen ejaculated inside the vaginal tract, and in this 3 to 4 ml of semen there are about 2 to 300 million sperms. The number of sperms are around 200 to 300 millions. So huge number of sperms. So why there is need to have millions of sperms during a single ejaculation? Here we can find the reason behind this huge number of sperms in 3 to 4 ml of semen. Why this is? So 200 to 300 million of sperms, they get deposited in the vaginal tract or in the vagina of female reproductive system. So once the sperm enters inside the female reproductive tract, there could be some barriers as well as there could be some conditions which would facilitate the movement of sperm towards fallopian tube. So there are some, you can say, facilitators, and there are some barriers. What facilitates the sperm's movement? First, prostaglandins. These prostaglandins are actually do remember, these prostaglandins are physiologically active lipids compound. Okay, physiologically active lipid compound, and they are released by seminal vesicles. Previously it was thought that they were released by prostate gland, but now we know that these prostaglandins are released by seminal vesicles, and they are physiologically active lipid compounds. So these prostaglandins, which are released through this semen or along with this semen, responsible for vaginal contraction. When semen enters inside the female vaginal tract, along with these prostaglandins, this causes contraction inside the female reproductive tract. Why this contraction is needed? To facilitate upward movement of sperms towards fallopian tube. So this is facilitator. Aspiratory uterus movement. This actually causes suction type of pressure. This suction pressure, just to make sure the upward movement, or just to facilitate upward movement of sperm. So these are the facilitators: aspiratory uterus movement, muscle movement, and prostaglandins due to physiological active lipid compounds. contraction takes place inside the female reproductive tract, just to ensure upward movement of sperm. Then there are the barriers. Thick endometrium layer. As you know, just before just before the ovulatory phase, the endometrium layer has been thickened. Just you can say to get ready for having uh, embryonic development after fertilization. So this endometrium layer, which has become thickened after or just before the ovulatory phase. So sperm has to go right through this. Oh, this is kind of physical barrier. So one physical barrier is thick endometrium layer for sperm movement. Acidic pH in vaginal tract. The vaginal tract has acidic pH which destroys many sperms, and thick endometrium layer hinders the entry of so many sperms which are heading towards fallopian tube. Phagocytes, they ultimately destroy sperms. So after having so many barriers, only 90 to 140 sperms they could reach up to fallopian tube. And the rate of movement of sperm is around 1 to 4.5 millimeter per minute. Okay. So after this, when this sperm facilitated as well as hindered by many you can say agencies inside the female reproductive tract, what happens once sperm enters inside the female reproductive tract? No doubt is facilitated by some of the muscle movement and prostaglandins, and also there are some barriers which hinders the upward movement of sperms. But once sperm enters inside the female reproductive tract, it starts attaining functional maturity. When I am saying functional maturity, once this enters inside the female reproductive tract, this functional maturity means this is known as capacitation, means capacity. Capacitation means capacity or the functional maturity of sperm. Okay. So this capacity is also this capacitation. The sperm attains functional maturity in female reproductive tract. This process includes, or this functional maturity, attaining functional maturity, this includes removal of sterols and glycoproteins. As you know, this is a acrosomal part. This is acrosomal part, and above this acrosomal part there are sterols and glycoproteins present just above this acrosomal part, just to ensure or they provide protection to the acrosomal part of sperm. And once sperm enters inside the female reproductive tract, these sterols and glycoproteins are removed from acrosomal head. So once sterols and glycoproteins are removed from this acrosomal membrane or head, now acrosome is acrosome is now, so it could release sperm lysins. Okay, so sperm lysine could be released only after the removal of sterols and glycoproteins from this acrosomal head. So this acrosomal head could release sperm lysins, which would break the membranes of ovum or egg. Also, influx of calcium ions. So calcium ions are taken in, okay, inside the reproductive tract of female, and due to having influx of calcium ions, this enhances the activity of sperms. So calcium ions actually they make sperms more active inside female reproductive tract. Also, in order to release sperm lysins via acrosomal head, sterols and glycoprotein layer has to be removed. So it would be removed only after when sperm would enter inside the female reproductive tract. So it's all about fertilization, first part of fertilization. In the next lecture we would discuss about fertilization in detail or next steps which take place during fertilization process. Thank you.